purpose that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Annette King.
Mr Speaker, may I begin by congratulating the Chair of our Health Select Committee, Simon O'Connor, on his recently announced engagement. He's a dark horse. We met yesterday, but not a mention of it. I think he was trying to avoid having to shout the committee morning tea. Can I suggest next week that Mr O'Connor will be shouting us a very luxurious, healthy morning tea at the Health Select Committee? But congratulations, and I always love a happy ending. Mr Speaker, Labor supports this bill and the second reading of the Home and Community Support Payment for Travel Between Clients Settlement Bill. We were pleased to see that the settlement on this case was finally brought to this House, because the Human Rights Commission made a ruling that travel should have been remunerated several years ago. So this issue arose several years ago. The Human Rights Commission, in fact, Louisa Wall probably remembers it when she had something to do with the Human Rights Commission. This has been around for a long time, and we are very pleased that settlement was reached between the major parties. But I want to begin by giving credit to the brave woman who took the test case. And you always have to have somebody that is prepared to put their hand up and to front an issue like this, knowing that there's no doubt going to be lots of publicity, and you're not used to that publicity, but you're so committed to the cause that you're prepared to do it. And that person was Jenny Goodman. Jenny Goodman bravely took that test case and claim on behalf of hundreds of fellow home care workers. So I think it's important that we always give credit where credit's due to Jenny, but also to the PSA. But as we know, although we are passing this legislation, and I'll get on to the process that we've been through in that, it is still a long way from dealing with the historic underpayment of home and community support workers, and most of these workers are paid close to the minimum wage, and I believe that they deserve to be paid for the very important work they do, commensurate with the responsibility that they have. We would not be able to provide the health services, the home care services in people's homes without this army of overwhelmingly women. It is an occupation that women have gone into, a caring occupation, and many of us have had parents who have been the recipients of fantastic home help from these home help workers. And so, yes, we are very pleased to see that we have this bill back before the House. And I have to say that it has been done in a very rapid manner. At the Select Committee, all parties on the Select Committee wanted to get it through so that we could reach the deadline that had been set. So the bill was introduced on the 24th of September. It had its first reading on the 13th of October and was then referred to our committee, and we made this one of the last tasks we did before we lifted for Christmas, and we reported the bill back on the 15th of December. There were 7 submissions, and they had a similar theme through all those submissions, which made it possible for us in the committee to make, I think, some very important change to the original bill that came into this House. Mr Speaker, I thought what I'd like to do is to talk about some of the submissions that we did receive and what they had to say. For example, the submission we received from the Public Service Association and ETU said this: there is a long-running history of work by employees, their unions and the Human Rights Commission to have conditions in this poorly paid and hard-working workforce improved. Part of this work focused on the reality that these employees spend a considerable amount of their working day travelling in their own vehicles between clients for little or no reimbursement. And that was the issue, I think, that really did concern members on all sides of the House, that there were workers who would drive from one house to another within their working hours, and they were not reimbursed for that, but perhaps the plumber or the electrician or someone else that was working out there in community and travelling between a workplace was reimbursed. And so the PSA said that they support this bill, and they recommend that the government have a commitment to improving both the terms and the conditions of employment for workers in this sector. The next one I want to share with you is from the New Zealand Federation of Business and Professional Women. And they came from the angle that we needed to be looking not just at this bill, and they said this about this particular bill. They said this is a step in the right direction, but it's by no means the end of the journey. We want to see this recognition of travel time be tied to inflation, and we are using the minimum wage as a yardstick. And if that increase in the minimum wage is reflected and linked to the travel time allowances paid. They went on to say their concern was for vulnerable workers, particularly women, and that they believe the bill does go some way to recognising the contribution that these employees were giving in their time and as unpaid employment. And it was unpaid employment when they were travelling between jobs because they were not being paid. They also said this is not the end of the work that needs to be done, and they urged the Minister of Health to increase funding to the aged care providers to provide pay equity for all aged care workers in accordance with the Equal Pay Act 1972, and to change the funding model for aged care providers to ensure any funding increases include ring-fencing of pay increases and accountability. The next one, Mr. Speaker, we had them from the major employers of these women, and one of them, perhaps the biggest employer of these women, is the HHL Group, the Healthcare of New Zealand Holdings Limited, and they said this: we are supportive of the bill due to the benefits that it will bring to our employees and clients. This bill represents a significant positive change to the home and community support services sector. And that was really the message we were getting from employers, but also the message that we were getting from employees and unions. Another one, the one that some of our rural members across the House will be familiar with, is Access Home Health. They put in a submission and they said they supported this bill because it provides major benefits to both our and the home and community support service sector clients and employees. Mr. Speaker, what went very well in this committee was, having listened to the submissions, the members of the committee across all sides of the House questioned very closely how it worked. Could we improve on this legislation? And we, I think, have made some quite significant changes which do improve the original bill. And we recommended that we include ACC Corporation in the bill, because ACC, although it was not a party to the original settlement, is explicitly mentioned in clause 1.3 of the final settlement agreement, and that has been agreed to, that we include ACC in it, and that came from a recommendation from our committee. There were a number of other amendments that we made, including the definition of an employee. We recommended replacing the definition of an employee so that the intent of the settlement is that non-salaried staff only would be covered. The new definition would clarify that, and for the purposes of this bill now, a person is an employee within the meaning of the Employee in the Employment Relations Act 2000 and someone who does not receive a salary. Mr. Speaker, I know that I'm running out of time, but those who read the amendments that we made, including a new Schedule 3, we took away regulation-making provisions and have put it in a schedule. I think they will see that this bill has been improved by the work of the whole committee. committee. So, Mr Speaker, we support this. We're very pleased with the progress that it has made. It is a very good start, but it isn't the end of the journey for those very important home care workers.